This is Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. In the motion picture world, there are an army of dedicated professionals who work behind the scenes to make the movies and shows we watch today. I'm Brad Hodson, and I've spent over 30 years in the motion picture industry. This podcast celebrates the people who make the magic behind the scenes. Kailey Schwerman, welcome to the circus. Describe what you do.
Thanks for having me, Brad. It's a pleasure to be here and be a part of what's going on. So I work in Vancouver as a unit photographer, as a still photographer. So I shoot all of the publicity and marketing imagery for the television shows.
Describe a little more why someone would want stills for a television show or a movie.
Yeah. So if you think of it this way, this is how I explain it to people is if you look at a film set, all the technicians, everybody there is there to make the show. But my job there is to sell the show. So I'm creating anything for print, web, anything you see on like your streaming services, any stills, that's all used to promote the show. And so that's why I'm there. So I'm shooting next to the motion cameras or elsewhere on set, creating stills of during the takes, some behind the scenes stuff as well, but primarily all to market the show. And it's
so you like movie posters and that kind of thing.
So movie posters are a little separate. Movie posters are generally a separate gallery type shoot. Same with key art, anything like that. Which I can also do as well. Unit photographers and gallery photographers, we kind of mix a little bit, but it's generally a bigger, more expensive shoot. But often a still can be used for a poster because what you get during the take is a different emotionality than what you can get inside of a studio if you're trying to emulate the same shot.
Right.
Yeah.
And would that fall under, say, if I'm looking at a picture of my family in a movie, would you have taken that shot?
This is a great question, Brad. So that would fall under any art department work. So that is production will hire you based on if they need a family photo in the background of the scene, or if they need any photos on the wall, or oftentimes it's like they need a wedding photo, so they'll do the makeup on the cast to make them look younger, and then they'll set up a shot. So that's also separate. But it's something that we do as well.
So it's a little more involved than just taking promo pictures, which maybe not a lot of people know.
It's very involved, and it takes all of your life. And when you go home at night, many people think, oh, you're finished after your 10-hour day or whatever. No, I'm shooting 10 hours, 12 hours, and I go home, and then I'm doing my posts on it, and then my weekends, and sometimes it can get backed up, and then you have zero social life. So it's involved. It takes all of you, and you can't half-ass it. You have to go all in.
Kailey, describe your journey so far in your career.
Okay, so how I got into working in
stills.
Okay, so when I studied photography in university. Back in Edmonton, I did 3 years, and I knew that I wanted to work on set. I knew I wanted to work in the motion picture industry. And it's funny, like all of my classmates back then, like they all wanted to do commercial work and editorial work. And I was like, I'm going to be an IATSE member. I'm going to do this. So I volunteered all my time on sets in university and shitty little shows. And I went down to Calgary and interned on like Heartland and so many shows. And I rode along with photographers, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. But preceding that, how I knew I wanted to work in this industry, it probably started in like the summer of 1997 when my parents took me to Disneyland and Universal Studios. I walked into that back lot and I was like, what is this world? Like the glamour, like that cinematic allure, it just like pulled me in. And it was probably on, I don't know, maybe like the Indiana Jones portion or the Back to the Future portion that I was like, this is cool. I remember the smells. I remember this, like what you saw. And I knew like there's something really pulling me, like really charming me about this fake world is. And from that day, Back to the Future is definitely still my favorite trilogy. So check that on your questions, because that one is forever will be. And in fact, that one totally inspired me towards what movie making can be and the magic of it and the nerddom of it and this, the visuals. Anyways, that will forever be my favorite trilogy. And it probably started with being on the back lawn of Universal Studios. And so knowing that when I went and studied graphic arts and photography in university, after I graduated, I I dabbled in the independent world there in Edmonton, like I said, and in Calgary. And then I went and interned out in Toronto and rode along with all the 667 photographers. And then I went down an internship in LA with Art Streiber. And then I came back up to Edmonton and was like, you know what, I should try out Vancouver. So my buddy, who's a DP, we hopped in the same car and came out here, and I've never gone back since. And I knew, and there's a quote that I live by. It's like, you'll never know. Oh, Travis Rice said this in Art of Flight, pro snowboarder. He's like, you'll never know your fullest potential until you push yourself hard enough to achieve it. And from then on, it was like, no, you have to do more than the next guy. You have to want it more than the next guy. And I knew this was a dog eat dog industry, and I knew it was stiff competition, but I knew that end goal in sight. And that was it. 669. And getting those days and working towards that. And yeah, it's such a fascinating industry. You just meet so many creative individuals, and that's what energizes me all the time. And so, anyways, getting back to your question of why photography, there's something so cool, and every day it's new when you have the privilege of preserving a moment in time forever. Motion picture, if you're shooting at 24 frames a second or whatever, 48, you're shooting so many consecutive frames. But the art of the stills world is, I already know the one frame that I want after you watch blocking, after you watch the rehearsing. I know the shot that I want. I'm not firing, like, I'm not I'm not spraying my shutter. Like, I know the shot that I want it, and that's what I want to get. And if you look at photos of your family, or you have old black and white photos of your family's history, like, whoever took that, like, God bless them, because that, you now see a part of your family that you would never have been able to see. So you're preserving something in one frame. And I think that the art of that is so magical. And I'm telling a story by one single shot. So if I take a photo of a beautiful waterfall out in nature, if I shoot it really close in, that's all you see of it. Or I can tell a story about having a wide shot. Whereas if you're videoing it, really cool also, but you're showing everything, whereas I'm showing you exactly what I want you to see. And that is such a, it's the art of finding the image within the story.
Very good.
Compels me.
What I appreciate about the industry is it's, ever since I've been in it, it's diverse. I mean,
yeah,
there are a lot of departments that were more man heavy and some more women heavy. I've seen that change over the years. Also, throughout my time in the industry, men and women got paid the same. It was a union rate.
Yeah.
As a woman, how do you find the industry to navigate as a woman?
On the still side of things, there's actually so many female photographers, which I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of everybody. At the end of the day, this is what I always say. If you're good at what you do, you should have the job. I don't care your skin color. I don't care your race, your religion, your gender. If you're good at what you do, have the job. If there's a guy that's better at me than my job, he should have it. 100%. It can definitely be a boys' club. And, you look around and sometimes you're in a room full of 35 guys and it's you or maybe one other. I definitely thrive in that atmosphere too. You just got to own what you do. And again, you have to go in there, be confident, and do the best that you can. And, but with that said, I think there are a lot of women that are definitely inspired. I see, sometimes even like young girls on set, or maybe like the kids of some of the technicians, and they see like a woman operator or a woman dolly grip or a still photographer, and they become inspired and know that, like, oh, that is achievable. And at the end of the day, if it promotes someone to be able to dream a little bigger and to achieve what they can set out for, not based on who they are and what they identify with or whatever, then that's a beautiful thing.
I agreed. In our industry, gender doesn't really matter.
No.
Trying to portray this differently. You don't have to be a person of strength, for example. You don't have to lift heavy things. Anyone can do these jobs because they don't require so much heavy lifting. So pretty much any position in the industry can be filled by a man or a woman at any time. And you're seeing more of that. I'm seeing more of that as the years go on in departments that traditionally didn't have a lot of women.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of women grip electric.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Even like back in the day, like back in the rigging days, back in the grip days and lamp pops. You know, there's some like serious badass females out there that will outwork any of the guys any day. And like, I look up to them. And yeah, so if you can do the job, do it, do the best that you can. Whether you're up in a lift or whether you're, you're
shooting a still camera.
Yeah, or you're yeah, exactly. or setting the furniture on set or miking an actor. If you can do it.
You mentioned the Back to the Future trilogy. What are some of your other favorite movies?
Ooh. Yeah, anything Bob Zemeckis. So Castaway, Forrest Gump, hugely inspired by his storytelling. And
can you watch a movie normally?
It's funny as another like film.
I personally cannot.
Yeah,
I'm pointing out all kinds of things.
Yes, I can watch it normally, but the people with me are not going to watch it normally because I'm going to be commenting and I'm going to be saying things. I'm going to be catching things. Yeah. You and I could probably watch a movie really well together. Well,
we'd have to pause a lot and have a conversation of what we just saw and then move on.
This
it would
is true,
take
and then I'd probably tell you too. Yeah. Okay. Shut up. Yeah. Yeah, and it's cool when you get to work with some of these people that your world becomes so much smaller sometimes when you work in this industry and then all of a sudden you look next to you and there's one of your favorite directors or actresses and so everybody I treat with the same respect and I don't nerd out or fangirl out, but there has been the few occasions where I have and it's a really neat thing. And you look at the end of the day, like, wow, what we do is really cool. And people can become really cynical or jaded, as they say. And it's like, keep the negativity to yourself because there's some of us who like really love what we do. And it's so cool. You look around, how many other people would love to have your job? And that's what I say. Like the moment you start complaining about what you do, stop doing it because there's so many people. There's hundreds of people that would rather have your job, and to get to do what you do is really, really neat. And yeah, so don't let it get old. And that would be my advice to anybody coming into this. Like, don't let it get old and no knowledge is wasted. So what you can learn in other departments or by putting yourself out there in other departments or learning about what other people do. And even like what you're doing with your podcast, it's like this knowledge and is hugely advantageous. And
I'm hoping with this podcast to let people, laymen, and even people in the industry to get something out of it. Like, what does a still photographer do? Or even, I didn't know a still photographer was a thing in the movie industry.
Right.
So I'm trying to set that balance. Okay. And further to the industry, if you don't like it, move on. You can do that laterally in this business, which I've done. Like I started off as a PA, and I've worn many hats in my 30 years, and now I think I'm at the position where I want to be, the program.
Yeah. So are you? Have you excelled to the?
Well,
or is it always?
You're always looking at something else. You're always looking at something else, going, I think I can. Anyways.
Yeah.
That's for another podcast. Anyways.
So how could Brad be better at his program podcast?
Always improving. If you're not always improving in anything, I think it's whether it 100%. Be your work or in your personal life, then you stagnate.
Bettering yourself. I'm always a promoter of you, Brad. Always. You're number one cheerleader.
Oh, thanks. I'm about to use it. Yeah. Any particular favorite projects you've worked on?
Oh, you know what? People ask me that all the time, and it just gets all muddled into this big ball of,
Every time I see you on set, it's like your best day ever. It's like
people are like, Kailey, can we pay to see you be angry? I was like, yeah, maybe it'll happen, but we all have our good days and our bad days.
I'm known after I'm a stills person.
No, there's nothing to be negative about, all joy all the time, just infusing positive, infectious vibes all around. Some of my favorite shows, gosh, I think more so than favorite projects, there's been favorite moments on set projects and things that, you remember, like, oh gosh, let me think about that one. Okay. Let me circle back to that one. Yeah.
Any day when you're not fired. You don't want that in there, I think.
No. There's
okay.
Because there's so many really cool moments, but there's also like a lot of personal moments too that maybe people
That's fine. We
want
don't have to
yeah.
kind of take it all in as one big felt swoop.
Okay, feel anything about it. Some stories.
What do you do outside the business? What are some of your other interests?
Okay, this is a great this is a great question. Things that this is how I'm going to word that question. It's things that give me energy outside of this business. Okay, anything on two wheels, you know that as much as I do. Getting out, adventuring, getting out in the bush, getting out camping, adventuring, traveling. Yeah, as much as and I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed that my what I do as a job is my creative outlet every day, and so that fills me. And you have such a great reward at the end of the day. I mean, let's be honest, we're not saving any lives, but there is such a reward that I have at the end of the day, and so that fills me on that side of things. And then on my weekends, though, and when I'm traveling, I usually leave my cameras behind because it's become my work that I need that separation and I need that work life balance. So going riding up to Pemberton today, cameras are left behind. It's adventure time. It's get outside, go riding, go racing, doing stupid things, and yeah, that's what.
So I asked you to shoot some of my cat stills or anything like that. That's not really something you.
Well, no, I would do that for my friends. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Friends ask me to do things, do their weddings, like you can for sure. Yeah, you have the abilities.
It's like when you own a pickup truck. It's like, can you help me move? When you're a professional
That's why you don't have a pickup
photographer,
truck. Yeah,
it's true.
yeah.
When you're a professional stills photographer, and I say, hey,
Yeah.
can you shoot my wedding?
I've been asked said things before.
I'm sure you
and
have.
I forever will.
You touched on it earlier, but do you have any more advice to people who want to get into this industry, and maybe more specifically, maybe get into stills in the industry?
Mm-hmm. The first thing that I say to people when they approach me with that question is you have to be prepared to do more than the next guy. And I said that quote earlier, and it's so true. You have to want it, and it's blood, sweat, and tears. And you're gonna just like being a Steadicam guy, stiff competition. You got to put in the money, you got to put in the time, you got to put in the um, uh, schooling or whatnot, or education towards it, courses,
Training.
yeah, training. Yeah, so you have to want it, and it can't just be your hobby. It needs to be something that you're going to fully put both feet into and commit to as your occupation. The other thing I'd say, yeah, there's more so other things that I live by, and when I'm actually doing my job. So a late photographer who I had the pleasure of hanging out with in LA a couple of years ago before he died. Amazing, amazing photographer in Local 600, and he said, "Kailey, to capture the moment, you need to be in the moment." And so you have to have full attention and full presence every time you're on set. And if you're one to be distracted or to be social all the time, like you're not going to be there. You're listening always to everything. And in order to capture that moment, I have to be fully there and fully present. So beckons your full presence. And yeah, if you want it, go for it. That's what I'll say to people. If you want it bad enough, go for it.
Agreed. And
Okay.
also define your work ethic, because one thing about this business, I'm sure you know, it's you're only as good as your last job, and you want to impress upon other people what your work ethic is like. And I guess like any job, you don't want to phone it in. You want to show that you want to be there and you want to be present and focused.
Completely.
Sure. Yeah. What's next for you in your career? How do you see yourself in 2, 3, 5, 10 years?
Brad, I don't know how I see myself necessarily tomorrow, but I have my goals. You know what? I reached the goal. This was always the goal. And there's no, it's like I said to you earlier, it's like sometimes people don't really understand. It's like asking a police officer if you want to be a firefighter. It's completely two separate career paths. So working in stills and working on the motion side of things, like what you do, it's like speaking two different languages. So I have no directive to go that way. So I'm at where I want to do, and now it's just becoming better every day, constantly learning, constantly, even doing this over 11 years, 12 years now, and it's constantly still challenging myself daily and pushing myself. At the end of the day, it comes down, it's a social game. What we do is a social game. So if you don't have a character who's able to go and chat with cast and ask the directors for something that you need, or to be personable, I don't know how you'll do it. It's 80% personality, like 15% shooting, and maybe the rest of that is your computer, is your emails, is your admin, is yeah. So it comes down to personality and being likable also on set. You're in tight quarters with people who don't necessarily want another extra camera in the room. And so you have to, you're in the crease of the operators of the dolly grips and of this boom guy. So if you're big and obtrusive, like, you're not going to be liked. So you have to navigate those tiny spaces, manipulate yourself to get where you need to be to get your shot, and be likable and approachable at the same time. So that, yeah. Where I see myself going is just, like I said, just becoming better at what I do and humbling myself to also accept that I'm not perfect and there's always things to improve upon.
That's brilliant. Kailey, thank you so much for joining us on The Circus.
Thanks, Brad, for having me. Oh, there's so many other questions, like other answers and great things to yeah.
Well, that about wraps it up for another episode of Crew Tales, Life in the Circus. I'd like to thank our producers Dustin Schwannard and Dustin Girton, as well as our technical producer Rob Hunt. I'm Brad Hodson. Thank you for joining us.